Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's Global Intelligence Briefing, the kind of report you will never hear from mainstream news because the changes now unfolding behind the scenes are simply too vast, too disruptive, and too interconnected for the old media system to handle. Over the past several weeks, our world has been moving through a silent earthquake in the realms of finance, intelligence, and geopolitics. Those who once controlled the global narrative through debt, secrecy, and manufactured crises are rapidly losing their grip. And as their influence fades, a new structure built on sovereignty, transparency, and collaboration is quietly emerging. Let us begin with the developments shaking the global financial system. For decades, central banks operated like private kingdoms, untouchable, unquestioned, and shielded from public oversight. But insiders from Washington, Frankfurt, and Tokyo confirmed that all three banks are now undergoing secret emergency audits. Military forensic teams have been brought in to track unaccounted gold reserves, off-book derivatives, and cross-border transfers linked to shell companies run by intelligence cutouts. One source put it simply, the central banks are no longer left alone. Someone higher is demanding answers, and the reason is clear. Multiple multi-trillion-dollar shadow funds, long used for black budget programs, have vanished. Money that once financed covert operations, regime change programs, election manipulation, and media influence campaigns can no longer be traced. The old guard has lost its financial fuel, and without that fuel, its machinery collapses. This financial breakdown is mirrored by a purge inside Western intelligence agencies. In Washington, London, and Ottawa, at least 9 senior officials have stepped down quietly. Not because they wanted to, but because they were implicated in unauthorized surveillance, fabricated intelligence reports, and foreign-funded influence networks. The internal wars between intelligence factions have reached their peak, especially inside the CIA. For years, the agency has been split into 3 groups: the globalist faction, the commerce faction, and the sovereignty faction. This week, the sovereignty group has gained the upper hand, aided not only by American military insiders, but also by cooperative channels inside Russian GRU units, Chinese anti-corruption squads, Southeast Asian cyber teams, and European financial investigators. This is no longer an East versus West conflict. This is a worldwide alliance against a parasitic, borderless, unelected power structure that once operated in the shadows. Perhaps the most explosive developments come out of Asia. Governments across Southeast Asia have begun releasing data on hidden offshore wealth, funds accumulated over decades through colonial-era channels, covert operations, and global corporate manipulation. These assets include old family treasuries, war-era bonds, black market gold, mineral-backed certificates, and NGO-laundered capital. The total value exceeds $40 trillion, enough to completely rewrite the global financial map. This revelation has triggered the rise of a new regional bloc, the Asian Consolidation Alliance, formed quietly by Indonesia, Vietnam, Malaysia, Thailand, the Philippines, and with Singapore as an observer and India and China as informal partners. Their mission is straightforward: restore financial sovereignty, build independent digital currency systems, diversify energy sources, and expose historical monetary manipulation. Asia is no longer a passive participant in world politics. It is becoming one of the engines of the new global order. Meanwhile, the energy cartels that once dominated global politics are collapsing from the inside. Refineries in Saudi Arabia, Texas, Qatar, Norway, and Nigeria have all experienced sudden maintenance shutdowns, but sources confirm these are not technical issues. They are forensic investigations into price manipulation networks, unauthorized export channels, and secret mineral storage. The fossil fuel leverage model is dying, and behind closed doors, militaries are quietly preparing for the release of suppressed energy technologies, plasma generators, high-efficiency ambient field devices, non-combustion propulsion, and early zero-point prototypes. These technologies were once confined to black-budget aerospace programs. Now they are being considered for phased public disclosure because the old power structures that kept them locked away no longer hold the keys. Globally, geopolitical alliances are shifting faster than at any time in the last century. Russia and Germany are conducting back-channel negotiations to rebuild energy corridors independent of American pressure. Middle Eastern rivals, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and the UAE, are aligning to stop foreign interference in their regional affairs. African nations are refusing IMF conditions and asserting control over their mineral wealth. The world is not fragmenting, it is reorganizing into a new multipolar structure. At the same time, governments are preparing carefully for the next phase: disclosure, not the Hollywood-style version, but controlled, incremental revelations about advanced aerospace technologies, multidimensional communication systems, and recovered materials. What the public is being slowly prepared through leaks, documents, declassified videos, academic studies, and coordinated statements from military officials. For the first time in decades, the technology that could transform civilization is closer to the surface than ever before. All of these shifts point to a deeper battle happening right now. It's a battle between two global factions. On one side is the collapsing globalist bloc. Its tools are debt, media manipulation, surveillance, and artificial crises. On the other side is the rising sovereignty alliance. Its tools are whistleblowers, military intelligence, financial transparency, asset reclamation, and parallel economic systems. The outcome is becoming clearer each week. The old guard is losing the war. Their influence shrinks with every audit, every resignation, every leak, every exposed transaction, and every new alliance formed outside their control. So what happens next? Expect sudden resignations, expect unexpected market swings, expect disclosures that shake public perception, expect the unveiling of new financial systems, expect alliances shifting faster than analysts can interpret, expect a storm. But recognize that storms do not destroy the future. They clear the path for it. We are living through the end of an era, the end of a system built on secrecy, debt, blackmail, and shadow governance. And we are witnessing the beginning of a new structure built on sovereignty, transparency, and global cooperation. There may be turbulence ahead and some weeks may feel chaotic, but beneath the noise, a new framework is already taking shape. The world is not breaking apart, it is breaking free. Stay alert, stay grounded, and prepare for the next chapter of this global awakening. As we continue this week's extended briefing, it becomes increasingly clear that the silent restructuring of global power is not slowing down. If anything, the pace is accelerating. The systems that maintained control for nearly a century, hidden finance, covert surveillance, engineered conflicts, are being dismantled layer by layer. And with each layer removed, new information surfaces that exposes how deeply the old networks were embedded into every institution of our modern world. Let's begin with the latest developments in the intelligence realignment. In the days following the resignations of several Western intelligence officials, a series of sealed indictments has reportedly been issued to individuals spread across government, finance, and media organizations. These indictments are connected to long-running investigations into foreign influence operations, off-book funding networks, and abuses of national security protocols. Sources inside the Pentagon say the evidence gathered over the last 18 months is now overwhelming. Whistleblowers from cyber units, financial oversight teams, and communications monitoring programs have joined forces, providing detailed documentation of how certain intelligence factions use surveillance tools to target political opponents, private citizens, and even foreign allies. This marks the first time the intelligence world has fractured publicly, with the sovereignty faction now openly challenging the globalist-aligned networks that once controlled information flow. One insider described it as follows: think of it as a house that looks solid on the outside, but inside, every supporting beam has rotted. All it needed was someone to turn on the lights. And now that the lights are on, the demolition has begun. Meanwhile, Europe is experiencing its own version of this upheaval. Several major European banks, previously considered pillars of financial stability, are now entangled in investigations over money laundering operations tied to intelligence-linked shell companies in the Caribbean and Southeast Asia. Internal memos leaked from one major bank indicate they were instructed for years to ignore suspicious transfers involving private intelligence contractors and offshore political foundations. What was once dismissed as conspiracy theory is now being confirmed as a systemic pipeline of illicit capital that funded covert operations across multiple continents. But the most shocking revelation comes from Asia. Following the exposure of hidden offshore assets exceeding $40 trillion, several governments have begun the process of repatriating these funds. This move has destabilized several Western financial institutions that relied on these shadow accounts to maintain liquidity. BRICS and the Asian Consolidation Alliance are now holding closed-door discussions to create a new settlement system, one that bypasses the IMF, the World Bank, and the SWIFT network entirely. If such a system launches, and insiders say the prototype is already operational, it would effectively end Western control over global finance. And that is precisely why certain factions are panicking. Now let's turn to the military side of this shift. Joint military exercises between Russia, China, India, and Southeast Asia have expanded significantly. Unlike previous drills, which focused on symbolic cooperation, these new exercises involve cyber operations, electronic warfare, and advanced aerospace testing. Several reports claim that unidentified craft, not belonging to any known air force, were observed maneuvering at impossible angles during these drills. The speculation inside military circles is that reverse-engineered technology, once monopolized by Western black budget programs, is now being shared with selected allied nations. In other words, monopoly control over advanced aerospace technology is ending, and with it, the old paradigm of global military dominance. On the energy front, the collapse of the oil-based power structure continues. Countries that once depended on energy cartels are now pursuing their own independent energy strategies. Saudi Arabia and Iran, historical enemies, have begun secret talks to develop a unified energy stabilization framework that excludes Western intermediaries. Africa is negotiating new mineral rights agreements with Asia, effectively blocking Western corporations from accessing cobalt, lithium, and rare earth deposits without respecting local sovereignty. We are witnessing not just economic but ideological realignment. For decades, globalist networks maintained control by sowing division among nations. Now those same nations are realizing they were manipulated into conflicts that served interests far beyond their borders. The moment this realization becomes widespread, the old system's ability to maintain influence collapses entirely. But perhaps the most profound shift is happening in the realm of information disclosure. Governments and militaries in multiple countries are preparing to release data related to advanced technologies, unidentified aerial phenomena, and previously classified scientific breakthroughs. Leaks from the aerospace sector indicate that several prototypes capable of silent propulsion and near-instant acceleration have been tested successfully outside conventional airspace. Why disclose now? Because for the first time, these technologies are no longer controlled by a single network. They are in the hands of multiple alliances, and secrecy is no longer a weapon. It is a liability. As we move into the next phase of this global transition, expect the following. Expect the media narrative to grow more chaotic as old networks lose the ability to control public perception. Expect financial markets to experience unexplained fluctuations as hidden liquidity sources evaporate. Expect more whistleblowers to come forward, especially from tech companies that collaborated with intelligence agencies. Expect geopolitical shocks like sudden alliances, abrupt policy shifts, and unexpected diplomatic breakthroughs. And expect deeper disclosures, ones that challenge our understanding of history, technology, and global governance. The world is fundamentally changing, and despite the fear and uncertainty that may arise in the coming months, remember this. The collapse of the old does not signal destruction. It signals liberation. A world built on exploitation cannot endure forever. A world built on transparency, cooperation, and sovereignty is now taking shape. This is not the end of the story. It is the next chapter in a transformation that has been unfolding quietly, invisibly, and inexorably for decades. We are witnessing the unraveling of an old empire and the birth of something entirely new. Stay aware, stay centered, and prepare for more revelations in the days ahead. Nuban mun toy ko taviet tiep fan 3 them 30 foot nua noimok. Fien ban sorti choka fan 1 plus fan do, fien ban gyong jokma, tram bian, hoak viet tiep teo huang ban mon, jia chin 3, kong anghe, nang luong, haikach fe joi jiao, ban mun tiep tok teo huang now. We are living through the end of an era, the end of a system built on secrecy, debt, blackmail, and shadow governance. And we are witnessing the beginning of a new structure built on sovereignty, transparency, and global cooperation. There may be turbulence ahead, and some weeks may feel chaotic, but beneath the noise, a new framework is already taking shape. The world is not breaking apart, it is breaking free. Stay alert, stay grounded, and prepare for the next chapter of this global awakening. As we continue this unfolding global narrative, it becomes increasingly clear that the transformation we are witnessing is no longer happening behind closed doors. What began as a subtle undercurrent has now turned into a visible tide, a wave challenging institutions, alliances, and assumptions that have defined world power for nearly a century. In the days following the repatriation of hidden Asian assets, several Western financial institutions quietly activated their emergency protocols. These protocols are designed for currency destabilization, unexpected liquidity failures, or large-scale cyber attacks, but this time none of those events occurred. Instead, the threat was something the old guard never anticipated: a coordinated movement toward financial independence by nations they once controlled. This shock has reverberated across global markets. Bond yields in several Western nations have begun fluctuating in patterns that analysts cannot explain. Corporate lenders with long-standing ties to intelligence networks are facing sudden, unexplained investigations. And major hedge funds, and once insulated from scrutiny, are seeing unprecedented audits into their offshore structures. The internal memo of one major hedge fund leaked this week, detailing their fear that the shadow liquidity pipeline has evaporated. The world is no longer behaving according to our models. Of course it isn't, because those models were built on manipulation, secrecy, and artificial scarcity, on systems that are rapidly being dismantled. Now let's shift our attention to the military front, where even more significant developments are emerging. Multiple sources confirm that at least 3 advanced aerospace platforms, long rumored but never acknowledged, have been redeployed from Western black budget programs to new joint research facilities in Asia and Eastern Europe. These relocations were not voluntary. They were the result of a coordinated intelligence campaign that exposed unauthorized weapons transfers and technological monopolization by a handful of corporations. One insider described the situation as follows: the corporations thought they owned the technology. Now they are being forced to admit they were only custodians, and that the real owners have returned to claim their property. This shift has triggered panic in the military-industrial complex. For decades, its power came from exclusive control over exotic technologies, but that monopoly is collapsing. Several nations now possess partial prototypes, fragments of propulsion systems, and access to research that was once locked behind the iron walls of unacknowledged programs. This brings us to one of the most important developments of the last week: the emergence of the Multinational Sovereignty Command, an unofficial coalition of military officers, engineers, and intelligence analysts from more than 11 countries. This group has begun coordinating efforts to accelerate the release of suppressed technologies and reestablish oversight over programs that operated independently of national governments. Their statement, passed anonymously to several sources, reads, "We serve the people of our nations, not clandestine financiers." The era of secrecy without accountability is over. Meanwhile, the intelligence wars continue to escalate. More whistleblowers have come forward, not from governments, but from major technology companies. These insiders claim that tech firms were pressured into developing behavior modification algorithms used to influence public opinion and steer political outcomes. The documents they provided show direct communication between corporate executives, intelligence agency directors, and media networks. This confirms what many suspected. Modern propaganda was not random, it was engineered. But now, those networks are fracturing. Several tech executives have resigned unexpectedly. Others are cooperating with investigators. Internal data logs show deleted messages, hidden servers, and encrypted channels used for political manipulation, all now part of ongoing forensic analysis. And while this unraveling continues, geopolitical alliances continue to shift in dramatic ways. In the Middle East, countries that once clashed in proxy wars are now forming unified strategic councils. Their goal is to eliminate foreign interference and build a regional security network. The message is clear. The era of external manipulation is ending. In Africa, the push for economic independence grows stronger. Nations rich in cobalt, gold, uranium, and rare earth minerals have rejected new mining contracts from Western corporations. Instead, they are negotiating directly with Asian and Eastern European partners, often in exchange for infrastructure, energy systems, and advanced communication technology. This signals a profound realignment of global power. For the first time since the colonial period, Africa is negotiating from a position of strength and winning, but the most mysterious developments involve the ongoing disclosure movement. Several military sources report that previously classified materials, recovered alloys, flight telemetry logs, and non-human biological data have been transferred from private contractors back into the custody of national governments. This is unprecedented. For decades, private companies held these materials shielded from congressional oversight and public scrutiny. The fact that these artifacts are now moving into government hands suggests that full disclosure, or at least partial disclosure, is no longer optional. It is becoming inevitable. Scientists involved in the classified research describe the recovered materials as technology that should not exist, capable of bending electromagnetic fields, absorbing energy, and maintaining structural integrity under extreme conditions. These findings challenge the foundations of current physics, indicating that our understanding of material science is only scratching the surface of what is possible. And now, for the first time in modern history, governments are preparing to tell the public the truth, or at least a version of the truth. So what happens next? Expect heightened turbulence, expect attempts by collapsing factions to stage distractions, political crises, economic fear campaigns, even false flag operations to regain control of the narrative. Expect certain media networks to escalate fear-based reporting as a last resort to keep populations compliant. Expect sudden diplomatic shifts, rapid treaty signings, and unexpected alliances. Expect deeper disclosures about money, technology, and history. And expect the unexpected, because the old script has been thrown out and the world is writing a new one in real time. The era we are entering is unlike anything seen before. For decades, humanity lived under a system that concealed knowledge, limited innovation, and exploited division. That system is dying. And the birth of what comes next will not be quiet, gentle, or orderly, but it will be unstoppable. Stay vigilant, stay grounded, and prepare for the revelations still to come. Neu ban muon, toi ko the viet ngai fan quar, tem train foot nua, geptan ban sar te hoan chin viet theo giong tram, uam quien luk hoak viet theo huang ban muon tap trong hon, kong anghe ufo tai chin, chien tran pe fai. Stay aware, stay centered, and prepare for more revelations in the days ahead. No ban muon toi ko te viet tiep, fan tri, tem 30 foot nua noi mok. Fien ban sorti choka fan 1 plus fan do, fien ban giong jokma, tram bi an, hoak viet tiep theo huang ban muon, Jia Chin Tri, Kong Anghe, Nang Luong, Haikach Pe Joi Jiao, Ban Mun Tiep Tok Tio Huang Nao. We are living through the end of an era, the end of a system built on secrecy, debt, blackmail, and shadow governance. And we are witnessing the beginning of a new structure built on sovereignty, transparency, and global cooperation. There may be turbulence ahead and some weeks may feel chaotic, but beneath the noise, a new framework is already taking shape. The world is not breaking apart, it is breaking free. Stay alert, stay grounded, and prepare for the next chapter of this global awakening. The messages coming through the network this week have a tone unlike anything we've heard in years. There is a sense of urgency, a tightening of timelines, as if various factions, each convinced it can shape the future, are finally being forced to show their hands. My contacts in Europe say the old institutions are acting like cornered animals. Files that were once securely buried in underground archives are resurfacing. Emergency classified briefings are being held late at night, sometimes with only 3 or 4 officials present, as if the walls themselves can no longer be trusted. Something is slipping through the cracks, something they can no longer contain. Across the Atlantic, the situation is equally tense. Several sources inside the U.S. intelligence community report that the so-called continuity networks, the hidden administrative structures designed to survive catastrophic events, are being reactivated for the first time since the early 2000s. No one is admitting publicly why. But the chatter suggests a coordinated purge is underway, one that targets consultant groups, NGO intermediaries, and entire clusters of contractors who have been quietly siphoning public funds through crisis programs and foreign aid channels. The money trails are becoming visible, and those who depended on secrecy for survival are preparing exit strategies. Meanwhile, Asia is no longer playing the role of silent observer. The signals from the financial hubs show that gold-backed ledgers, long rumored but never confirmed, are being tested in controlled environments. This is shaking the foundations of the fiat-based system that has dominated the global economy for generations. For the first time, several governments are comparing internal figures and noticing discrepancies large enough to expose decades of fabricated entries by private financial cartels. When those numbers are made public, and my sources insist this will happen sooner than expected, it will become obvious that the wealth of the world was engineered to appear scarce. And when scarcity collapses, so does the leverage of those who used it to control nations like chess pieces. What is interesting is how all of this is unfolding without the public even realizing the scale of the storm above them. Social media distractions and artificially amplified divisive narratives continue to flood the screen, but beneath it, military liaisons from East and West are exchanging data with a level of cooperation that would have been unthinkable a decade ago. They are preparing for what they call a realignment phase, an attempt to prevent panic when the public inevitably learns just how manipulated the global structure has been. None of these officials believe the current system can survive intact. The goal now is simply to manage the impact. At the same time, a growing number of whistleblowers are contacting our channel with almost identical reports. They speak of internal servers wiped clean, of unusual convoys moving at night, of mid-level operatives quietly disappearing from their posts. They mention coded orders and sealed directives that bypass the usual command chains. When these events repeat across multiple continents, it is no longer coincidence, it is preparation. Someone is clearing the board for a major shift, and they are doing it with precision. And yet, in the middle of all this, there is a strange confidence emerging among the groups aligned with reform. They believe that the artificial crises, the staged conflicts, and the economic fear campaigns are losing their effectiveness. They claim that a window has opened, brief, fragile, but real, during which the hidden architecture of global control can finally be dismantled. Whether they are overly optimistic or simply better informed remains to be seen, but there is no denying that the tone of their communications has changed. Instead of warnings, they speak of strategy. Instead of frustration, they speak of opportunity. The sense we get from all factions is that we are approaching a point of convergence. Information leaks, financial audits, military triangulation, and the collapse of old alliances are lining up like storm fronts drifting toward the same coastline. The air feels charged, dense, expectant. It is the kind of atmosphere that precedes major revelations or historic reversals of power. And for the first time in years, those long working behind the curtain appear nervous. They know that too many people have seen too much. The machinery they once controlled effortlessly is sputtering, and as the fractures widen, all attempts to maintain the illusion of stability fall apart. This is the landscape as it stands now, a world outwardly calm but internally volatile, held together by institutions that no longer trust their own foundations. Something is about to give. And when it does, it will redraw the balance of power across every continent. What remains to be seen is which faction will move first and whether the global public is ready for the truths that have been buried beneath decades of managed perception. The currents of change are moving faster than anyone imagined, yet most of the world remains oblivious. Meetings that would have once been classified for decades are now happening openly behind closed doors, and the walls of secrecy that protected the globalist networks are crumbling from within. In multiple capitals, diplomats report sudden shifts in tone. Agreements that seemed impossible last month are now quietly being drafted, and the language of cooperation replaces years of entrenched hostility. Those who once relied on fear and division to maintain control are finding that their methods no longer work. Panic flickers behind the eyes of people who thought themselves untouchable, and the corridors of power, once suffocatingly orderly, are now filled with tension and confusion. Meanwhile, intelligence sources reveal that several formerly secret programs, once considered untouchable, are being systematically reclaimed by states who see the writing on the wall. These are not small initiatives. They involve advanced aerospace projects, energy technologies, and even communication systems capable of operating outside conventional networks. For decades, these programs were jealously guarded by private contractors and a few select agencies, but now the balance of control is shifting. Files, blueprints, and prototypes are being moved under official oversight, and those who resist are being quietly sidelined or removed. The impression is unmistakable. The era of private dominion over global assets is ending. Financially, the system is under increasing strain. Shadow accounts that once fueled political influence and covert operations are being traced and, in some cases, seized. Central banks are under pressure from both internal audits and external alliances, and the so-called hidden reserves that kept the globalist machinery running are evaporating. Nations that were previously dependent on manipulated markets are realizing they have been played for decades, and their responses are methodical and coordinated. This is not chaos. This is strategy. Every move, every disclosure, and every leak is calculated to weaken the old guard while strengthening sovereign networks. The precision is frightening in its clarity. Across Asia, cooperation between nations is accelerating in ways that few outside the intelligence and military communities are aware of. Joint research, financial reconciliation, and technology transfers are happening simultaneously across multiple borders. What stands out is the level of trust being extended between countries that were once cautious or even hostile toward one another. The geopolitical landscape is reshaping itself quietly but decisively, and the patterns are unmistakable to those paying attention. This is the moment when the old story ends and the new one begins. Those who fail to recognize the shift will be left scrambling for relevance as history accelerates past them. And yet, even as these transformations unfold, the old networks are not surrendering quietly. They are attempting last-ditch maneuvers, employing media disinformation campaigns, financial pressure, and political provocations in hopes of regaining control. Some of these efforts are desperate, some are violent, and all of them are increasingly transparent to those who have been observing from behind the scenes. The old system is dying, but it fights with all the cunning it has left. Every exposed transaction, every revealed communication, every whistleblower strengthens the position of the reforming alliances, yet the tension is rising. The coming weeks will test the resilience of both sides, and there is no certainty that the transition will be smooth. In the midst of this, ordinary people remain largely unaware of the magnitude of the forces at work. Life goes on as usual on the surface, markets fluctuate, governments publish statements, media cycles churn. But beneath the veneer, the world is being rewritten. Financial empires are being recalibrated, military strategies are being redefined, and intelligence structures are being reconfigured to prioritize sovereignty and accountability over secrecy and manipulation. The speed and coordination of these changes suggest that the next public revelations will shock not just governments and corporations, but populations worldwide. This is a pivotal moment. The systems that once seemed unassailable are now fragile. The alliances that were unthinkable a year ago are solidifying. The technologies that were long suppressed are moving into new hands. And as these forces converge, the world is approaching a threshold where control will be permanently redistributed. Those watching closely know that we are not witnessing the collapse of civilization, but the dismantling of an old framework that was never meant to last. The real question is how society will respond when the full scope of these changes becomes apparent, and whether the public will understand that the chaos on the surface is only a prelude to a far more profound, deliberate transformation beneath it. This is the landscape as it stands now, a world outwardly calm but internally volatile, held together by institutions that no longer trust their own foundations. Something is about to give, and when it does, it will redraw the balance of power across every continent. What remains to be seen is which faction will move first, and whether the global public is ready for the truths that have been buried beneath decades of managed perception. The pace of change shows no sign of slowing. Across continents, decisions are being made behind closed doors that will shape the trajectory of nations for decades. Officials who once believed themselves untouchable are now finding that their authority is conditional, fragile, and increasingly dependent on alliances that are rapidly dissolving. The signals are unmistakable. Power is shifting from the hands of a few entrenched elites into networks that operate on transparency, accountability, and coordinated strategy. Every leak, every exposure, and every unanticipated resignation sends a ripple through institutions that were long considered permanent, yet are now proving remarkably brittle. Military sources report that exercises conducted over the last weeks were unlike any prior drills. Ships, aircraft, and ground units moved in patterns suggesting preparation for rapid realignment rather than conventional defense. Observers note coordination between countries that historically stood in opposition, with communications protocols designed to bypass traditional hierarchies. It is as if a new command structure, invisible to the public, is emerging, a system where power is distributed horizontally rather than vertically, and decisions are made with speed and precision unthinkable in the past. Those who once relied on hierarchy and secrecy to dominate now find themselves navigating a landscape where influence is fluid and alliances unpredictable. In the financial world, pressure is mounting. Institutions that had quietly controlled liquidity, credit flows, and investment networks for decades are now being scrutinized at every level. Offshore holdings are being traced and shell corporations are being mapped, exposing links that have remained hidden for generations. The sheer scale of the revelations is staggering. One source, speaking on condition of anonymity, described internal meetings in which executives were openly panicked. We knew the system was fragile, but we didn't realize how quickly it could unravel. And unravel it is in ways that will affect every sector, every market, and every government that depended on the old arrangements for stability. At the same time, technology and energy are converging in ways that were once thought impossible. Reports indicate the transfer of advanced systems, previously restricted to black budget programs, into coordinated multinational oversight. These are not merely incremental improvements, they are disruptive technologies capable of redefining energy generation, aerospace operations, and communication networks. Those who have followed these developments understand that the implications extend far beyond economics or defense. They touch the very framework of human civilization. The knowledge and capability that were once the monopoly of secretive elites are now poised to influence the public sphere, and with that comes both opportunity and danger. Political dynamics mirror these technical and financial shifts. Nations that were long pawns in global chessboards are beginning to assert autonomy. Unexpected alliances are forming, old conflicts are being set aside, and strategies are being recalibrated to reflect a new reality, one in which sovereignty and national interest cannot be overridden by clandestine networks. Diplomats report an almost dizzying pace of coordination, strategy, and negotiation, suggesting a level of foresight and planning that contrasts starkly with the chaos projected to the public. Those attempting to cling to the old order are reacting desperately, their efforts increasingly transparent and ineffective. Despite the growing awareness among elites and policymakers, the general population remains largely unaware of the scale and depth of these shifts. Daily life appears normal on the surface. Markets fluctuate, governments issue statements, and media continues its cycles of distraction. But beneath the veneer, the foundations of global power are being reconstructed. Every exposed corruption, every technological transfer, every whistleblower testimony chips away at the structures that were long assumed immutable. What is occurring is not merely a series of events. It is a comprehensive redefinition of how influence, power, and authority are distributed on the planet. The question now is timing. How long before the public becomes aware of the truth behind these changes? How will populations react when they learn that decades of governance, finance, and global strategy were manipulated to benefit a shrinking elite? Those in the know are preparing contingencies to manage disclosure carefully to prevent panic while ensuring that accountability is enforced. Yet even with such planning, the magnitude of what is about to surface cannot be overstated. The old systems are collapsing, and the new order is taking shape in real time. Every moment that passes brings us closer to a point where the world will be irrevocably altered. The storm is approaching, but it is not a storm of destruction. It is a storm of revelation, redistribution, and rebalancing. Those who can perceive the patterns understand that the chaos, uncertainty, and tension are necessary precursors to clarity, fairness, and a redistribution of power that has been delayed for far too long. The next weeks and months will be decisive resignations, disclosures, technological revelations, and strategic realignments will continue to unfold with increasing speed. What has remained invisible for decades will become undeniable, and when it does, the consequences will reshape the political, financial, and technological landscape of the world forever. For those observing quietly, for those who have been watching the threads of power unravel, there is one certainty: the world is entering a new era. The old guard may resist, they may manipulate, and they may attempt to obscure the truth, but their influence is waning, their authority is fragile, and the networks they relied upon are fracturing. The next phase of this transformation will be more visible, more impactful, and more consequential than anything that has come before. And when it arrives, those who are prepared will witness not the end of civilization, but the birth of a world that has been quietly waiting to be freed from the chains of secrecy and control. This is the landscape as it stands now, a world outwardly calm but internally volatile, held together by institutions that no longer trust their own foundations. Something is about to give. And when it does, it will redraw the balance of power across every continent. What remains to be seen is which faction will move first, and whether the global public is ready for the truths that have been buried beneath decades of managed perception. You can see that these are panicking because what they thought was going to happen with the Epstein files is not happening. And you can see that basically Trump trapped them in all this. They're caught in a trap and they don't know what to do. And again, Trump has now played them. They kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And this is what Trump does. He leads them in and says, no, 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 we don't want that. No, no, no. All right, you really want it? Okay, you're requesting it. Okay, here you go. Now, here's all the information. And now, let's see what turns up here. And actually, this is not going to work the way they think it's going to work out. And actually, this is a complete and utter disaster for the deep state players once again. And you can see that Trump now, what he is doing right now, he is now separating the players for the midterms. And I don't believe it's just for the midterms. I do believe Trump now is actually preparing everything, yes, for the midterms, but also for the presidential elections. He's thinking way, way ahead. Remember, his entire mission is to do what? It's to take back this country. His entire mission is to make sure we don't have these obstructionists, the rhinos, in position where they're going to stop or try to stop everything that he's trying to do. And he needs to make sure those people that are going to try to come, get in the way of the 28 presidential election, he needs to make sure that he actually outs them right now and people could see who they are and who they truly are. So I do believe that's exactly what he's doing right now. And he's prepping the entire thing. Just like he's prepping everything, so this way we can have accountability moving forward. And like we've always said from the very, very beginning, we need to look at these judges very, very carefully and closely. And all those people that are screaming and yelling and whining that we need prosecutions, just take a step back for one moment. Take a look at what is going on right now. If you have a judiciary that is corrupt, that is blackmailed, do you really think when Trump and team, they bring them in front of this judge who is corrupt, do you really think they're going to follow the rule of law and actually abide by the law and actually then convict these people? Think about that for a sec. And think about the instructions they will give to the juries. And I do believe what Trump has done right now, he's taken Comey, he's taken Bolton, he's taken Letitia James, and yes, there's going to be many other people. And he's used open and shut cases, simple cases. These aren't the treasonous cases. These are very simple cases, documents that they might have signed. They might have lied to Congress. And he wants to see, let's see what happens when we take these people and we put them in front of these judges. Let's see the lawfare tactics. Let's see what the judges do. And let's see if the judges are following the rule of law, or are they going to use the lawfare tactics to get these people off? And I think we're starting to get the answer, and it's becoming clearer and clearer every single day that no, we cannot have accountability. Because when you look at the Comey case, what do you see? You see already that the judge now most likely will let him go. That the case is not going to go forward. And then when you look back in time and you look at all the judges that were going after Trump, they wouldn't even allow Trump to submit certain evidence. And most of the cases didn't even make sense, especially the one with the valuation of his real estate, where the bank said, we have no problem whatsoever. We actually gave him an award because he paid off his loans ahead of time. And Trump actually didn't value his properties. The lenders do that. And who was the victim in those cases? There was nobody. So once again, we could see that Trump's plan, where he's checking it out first, is actually working, and they're doing exactly what he thought they were going to do. So what does that mean? How can we have accountability right now? Oh, let's arrest everyone. Let's put them in front of these corrupt judges. Oh wait, everyone got off. Everyone's angry, pissed off, because no one's thinking right now. We need the House. We need the Senate. The midterms to complete the mission to take back this country are so, so important. Not just to have accountability, but to actually do other things that Trump needs to be done. If we do not get rid of the central bank system, the loan sharking system where we the people, borrow this currency with interest attached, which breeds corruption. If we do not get rid of this, we're just going to have the same thing all over again, and it will never, ever end. Yes, it might be cleaned up for a very short period of time, but it's not going to last. And I go back to the example when Trump was in his first term, he wrote incredible executive orders. People were feeling good. Fuel prices were coming down. The economy was chugging along. He was doing a lot of different things, peace through strength, got rid of a couple of terrorists from Iran, and all of a sudden, Biden came into the picture, and what happened? Those low energy prices, they went skyrocketing. They went way, way up. Inflation that he had below 2% went where? Went straight up. All the executive orders that Trump put into place, well, they reversed it. The lockdown border and the building of the border wall, that was reversed. So, do we really want that once again? No, we don't. Because what would be the purpose of all this? Remember, we're fighting to take back the country. Trump's mission is to return the power to the people. That's why he says, we have no time right now for these ridiculous hoaxes by the deep state, by the Ds. Our mission is to take back the country. Yes, we could spend all our time on all these ridiculous things right now. And if we don't take back the country, who cares? What did we accomplish? We accomplished absolutely nothing. Remember, he's in office for 3 years and a couple of months right now. Yes, he's going to hand this off, but he needs to go as quickly as possible. We need to get everyone on board. We need to take control of the House and the Senate. We need all of this now to take back the country. Remember, this is part of the plan. And we could see that Trump, he says, okay, let's get this over with. You want the Epstein files? Release them all. Release everything. This way, we get it over with. Let's get back to business. Let's get back to taking back the power of this country. Let's give it right back to the people. Yes, the Epstein information that the Ds were trying to push. Yeah, it's important up to a point because we're not there yet. And remember, this is not about these little tiny issues here and there. This is about taking the power back. And it's much, much deeper. It's much, much wider and much, much more that Trump has to do. It's not just about arresting a couple of people. Yeah, guess what? You arrest Obama right now. You arrest Clinton right now. You arrest Comey right now. Yeah, they're arrested. Great. Keep the central bank in the state that it's in right now, where we're still borrowing currency. What do you think is going to happen later on? You're going to breed corruption again. Yeah, it might take 5, 8, and 10 years, maybe even sooner than that, but you're going to be back exactly where you were before. And think about it. If we don't take control of the House and Senate, and we don't codify the executive orders, we don't place voter ID as a law with paper ballots and one-day voting. We don't get rid of mail-in ballots. If we don't get rid of all the illegals, guess what's going to happen? With all the money that they're going to be money laundering, they're going to set up their entire cheating system once again. Yeah, Obama might not be doing it. Hillary Clinton might not be doing it. But believe me, you're going to have takers, because it's very easy to corrupt those people that are already criminals. And once again, we will be back to where we are today. And you can see, this is what Trump is continually trying to tell everyone. He doesn't have time for all this because he understands the clock is ticking and we must move forward. We must take back control of this country. Remember, this is not business as usual. The country that we've been living in, the way it's been operating, it's about to change big time. It's not going to be, oh, here we are once again with the same uniparty. We're about to change everything. And a lot of people don't understand this, that we're going to do a 180 right now. Because what we've been living in is everything the deep state, the central bankers have set up. That's what we've been living in. Trump is going to end all of that. And the world that you've been living in is about to change. Change for the better. And it's going to be absolutely incredible. And this is why Trump is continually out there saying, listen, we have a lot of work to do. He knows what he needs to do. And with the D's and everyone else and the rhinos trying to bog him down with all this, it's not going to happen. So once again, you could see where we are right now. And Trump is now testing the judiciary, testing everything, because he knows where we have to go with all of this. We'll be discussing a lot more about this a little bit later. But first, let's talk about the illegals, because again, we need to get rid of the illegals. And yes, in 2026, what's going to happen? That one big, beautiful bill. The funding is going to come in, and all those people that want to assist in going after these people, we're going to have hundreds of thousands of people rounding these people up and removing them, which is going to make it much, much more difficult for the deep state players that he's to cheat in the midterms. And like we said many, many times before, every step of the way, what Trump is trying to do, he's trying to minimize or mitigate the cheating that they have. Yes, it would be the ultimate to end the filibuster and to basically pass a law that says voter ID, 1 day, voting, paper ballots only. That is it. That would be incredible. It would shut down everything that they're doing right now. If we don't get that, Trump says, okay, at least we're going to get the Supreme Court ruling 1 day voting, which will assist us greatly in reducing the cheating that the deep state have been doing for a very long time. If the Supreme Court doesn't rule on this, or something happens, Trump says, okay, I'm cleaning up the voter rolls. I got rid of the Social Security numbers. I'm deporting the illegals. I'm going to make it so we can override their cheating system so they can't cheat the way they did before. So every step of the way, Trump is trying to do this. And yes, depending on what happens, it will be safe up to a point. And this is why we need all hands on deck. This is why we need to take it all back now. We need control of the House and Senate. We can't have these obstructionists standing in the way. We need them removed right now, or guess what? Nothing's going to get done just like you're seeing today and what you've seen in the past. But again, Trump now is removing the illegals. And every day that passes, you could see Congress, the fake news, they continually put out all of these fake stories. Jesus, freaking Congress says, this is disgusting. ICE Border Patrol are now illegally targeting and arresting children in the Charlotte area. Well, once again, this is fake. Commander Gregory K. Povino put this out and said, "What's disturbing is you lie with no facts. This illegal alien juvenile was 18 years old. He was not zip-tied in the store, but let out where he tried escaping and was then zip-tied. Lying like this needlessly incites the community, thus increasing possibility of violence. Homeland Security, then, is now pointing to a CNN article, and it says, he came to the U.S. as a child refugee from the former Soviet Union. Now he's a father facing deportation to Ukraine. Homeland Security says it's alarming that CNN can always be counted on to run cover for violent felons. Imagine if they showed the same care for American citizens. On August 1st, ICE arrested aggravated felon and illegal alien from Russia, Roman Sarakva. Serva has a final order of removal by an immigration judge from November 4th, 2014. His criminal history includes assault with a deadly weapon, multiple counts of burglary, multiple counts of carjacking, carjacking with a firearm, trespassing onto private property, multiple counts of taking a vehicle without owner consent, possession of a hypodermic needle syringe, receiving stolen property, multiple counts of conspiracy to commit a crime. He was a legal adult when he committed many of these felonies. Under President Trump and Secretary Noem, if you break the law, you will face the consequences. Criminal illegal aliens are not welcome in the U.S. And there you have it right now.
And like we said before, we can't have judges like Judge Boasberg trying the cases like Comey's case or Obama's case or Hillary's case or anyone or any other case, because again, what do you think they're going to do? They're not going to rule the way you think they're going to rule. Amuse put this out and said, Obama Judge Boasberg blocked Trump admin CDL restrictions meant to prevent tragedies like the Florida crash, where an illegal migrant trucker killed 3 people. His ruling keeps 190,000 non-citizen CDL holders on U.S. roads. Another Obama judge undermines safety. Sean Davis says, why has the House not yet impeached this corrupt clown for violating the law of spy on Republican senators? Think about that for a second. So if the House impeaches him, doesn't have to go to the Senate. Why haven't they done this? Because they know it's going to go absolutely nowhere. Because we don't have control yet. And these judges are the problem. Because you have to remember the deep state players, they spent years upon years of putting these people into these positions because they wanted a corrupt system. They wanted a system that they could control. So this way, anyone that stepped into the presidential position, they wouldn't be able to do anything. Why do you think all these judges are attacking Trump? Because they're controlled. They've been instructed. Delay, delay, delay. Until the midterms, we need to make sure that he doesn't remove the illegals. We need to make sure that he doesn't fire every single person in the government. We need to make sure that he doesn't close all the different agencies. They're trying their best to delay Trump, but they're losing every step of the way. But again, they know they can't stop him because Trump controls the executive branch. All they can do is use their corrupt judges to try to delay it, but it's not working. Now, the other thing that's very interesting, since the Epstein information was pushed so hard by the D's, it looks like ICE is announcing a brand new operation to conduct welfare checks on the 450,000 children that Biden administration placed with unvetted sponsors, some of whom were sex traffickers, gang members, and abusers. I don't think the deep state players are going to like this because once again, when we start to find out that, wait a minute, yeah, they are with sex traffickers. Yes, they are in slave labor. They're using these children for the pedophiles. The people are going to start to learn this, and the people are going to become pretty darn angry. Because, again, once the people understand that they've been harming children, and they've been covering this up, it is game over. I think a lot of people know this, but as the news comes out, it is going to be terrible for the deep state players. Just like with all these Epstein files that are coming out right now, it is terrible for them. Rapid Response 47 put this out and said, notice how Democrats aren't talking about the indisputable fact that their own Stacey Plask
was colluding in real time with Epstein during a committee hearing. It's on camera. What else did she know? Very interesting. Bill Kristol put this out and said, Trump doesn't have to call on House Republicans to vote to release the file. Trump can order Bondi and Patel to release the files tomorrow. The question is, has he already ordered Bondi and Patel to destroy some of the files after they went through them months ago? Carl Higbee says, no turd. 3 Democrat-appointed judges blocked him. It requires Congress, and they will this week. And yes, Trump has already said, let's bring all this out into the open. You want to play the game? We will play the game, but we're going to play it my way. Ryan Angle News put this out and said, a newly revealed email shows Democrat funding group Dynamic SRG contacting Jeffrey Epstein in 2013 to promote then freshman Congressman Hakeem Jeff, calling him Brooklyn's Barack, while urging Epstein to support a major Democratic fundraising push. ALX responds to this and says, how many Epstein emails have shown efforts to support Trump's candidacy? I haven't seen any, and he's absolutely right. And we could see that the deep state players, they have lied every step of the way. And now the truth is coming out. Epstein was part of their criminal syndicate. And a lot of these people, well, as Trump investigates them, it's going to show that they went to the island, they were having sex with children, they were using Epstein as blackmail. You could see how this is all playing out right now. The Oversight Committee put this out and said, Robert Garcia and Oversight Dems must publicly condemn their Democrat colleagues' collusion with Epstein. Did any other Democrat collude with Epstein to basically attack President Trump? Are they condemning anyone? No, they have not. Trump, he put this out on Truth. He said the following. As I said Friday night aboard Air Force One to the fake news media, House Republicans should vote to release the Epstein files because we have nothing to hide and it's time to move on from the Democrat hoax perpetrated by the radical left lunatics in order to deflect from the great success of the Republican Party, including our recent victory on the Democrat shutdown. The Department of Justice has already turned over tens of thousands of pages to the public on Epstein, are looking at various Democrat operatives, Bill Clinton, Reid Hoffman, Larry Summers, etc., and their relationship to Epstein, and the House Oversight Committee can have whatever they are legally entitled to. I don't care, he says all caps. All I do care about is that Republicans get back on point, which is the economy, affordability, where we are winning big, our victory on reducing inflation from the biggest level in history to practically nothing. Bringing down prices for the American people, delivering historic tax cuts, gaining trillions of dollars of investment into America, a record. The rebuilding of our military, securing our border, deporting criminal illegal aliens, ending men and women's sports, stopping transgender for everyone, and so much more. Nobody cared about Jeffrey Epstein when he was alive, and if the Democrats had anything, they would have released it before our landslide election victory. Some members of the Republican Party are being used, and we can't let that happen. Let's start talking about the Republican Party's record-setting achievements and not fall into the Epstein trap, which is actually a curse on the Democrats, not us. Make America great again. Now, why do you think they wanted the Epstein stuff out there? They were going to trickle it out. They were going to manipulate the evidence. The fake news was going to put out headlines, and they were going to try to keep Trump busy over a long period of time.
But again, it's not working out the way they thought it was going to work out. And you have to remember the fake news doesn't control the narrative anymore. Because once again, we get information on social media which they do not have control over. The Oversight Committee put this out and said Democrats got caught red-handed spreading a hoax about Trump and Epstein. They misled the public, lied about witness testimony, doctored documents, and are now scrambling to cover it up. We have the receipts. They don't want you to read. Number one, let's start with former AG Bill Barr. Democrats claim Barr could not clear Trump on wrongdoing after his deposition. What did Barr actually say? That there was no evidence and that if SDNY had anything on Trump, they would have indicted him. They didn't. Number two, then came Alexander Aosta. Dimick has tried to smear Trump by linking him to Epstein via the 2007 case, but Acosta crushed their narrative. He testified that he never spoke, emailed, or had any contact with Trump about Epstein. None, ever. Number three, so what did Democrats do? They leaked 3 cherry-picked emails out of 23,000 pages, then made their own redactions to hide exonerating facts. One name they blacked out, Virginia Guthrie. Why? Because she publicly said she never saw Trump do anything wrong. Number 4, another Democrat redaction for their hoax, Prince Andrew. Why? Because the redacted contacts changes the email. They were fabricating a smear campaign, not telling the truth. Number 5, then they lied about who did the redactions. Representative Crockett and others went on CNN pretending they had no idea who made the edits. CNN corrected them live, saying Democrats made the redactions. So once again, they're screwed. Number 6, we released everything. 23,000 pages. Suddenly, the same Democrats who spent months screaming, "Release the files," told the New York Times that doing so was meant to disorient and distract. So much for transparency. Then the fake and dishonest New York Times quietly edited their piece, removing the word disorient with no editor's note. They are literally helping Democrats rewrite history after their hoax fell apart. Disinformation in real time. Number 8. But here's what no one is talking about. In 2019, Democrat Stacey Plask was testing texting with Jeffrey Epstein during an actual House hearing. Epstein helped Plaskett question a discredited witness who hated Trump, none other than Michael Cohen. What? Number 9. While Plaskett worked with Epstein to attack Trump, Democrats now want you to believe they care about the victims. They don't. All I do care about is that Republicans get back on point, which is the economy, affordability, where we are winning big, our victory on reducing inflation from the biggest level in history to practically nothing, bringing down prices for the American people, delivering historic tax cuts, gaining trillions of dollars of investment into America, a record. They ignored Clinton's connections, buried exculpatory facts, and made targeted redactions to select documents to smear Trump. Shameful. Basically, they lied about everything. Enough with the lies. We've got. The Oversight Committee says, we released all the documents, 65,000 pages to date. No cherry picking, no cover-ups. Democrats, they only released 9. Americans deserve the full truth. not whatever version helps Democrats spin other hoaxes. Absolutely. And this is why Trump from the very beginning said it is a hoax. Clandescent says, so the Dems spent years trying to spin that Trump was implicated in the Epstein files, but the new emails revealed that Epstein despised Fear Trump and was directly assisting the Dems to take Trump down. In other words, Epstein was a deep state affiliate. This has always been the case, and anyone who paid even the slightest bit of attention to the Epstein story over the last 20 years knew this to be the case. But the Dems tried to smear Trump with it anyway, hoping they could weaponize the public's ignorance. The hoax Trump is referring to is the Dems trying to accuse Trump of being involved in abuse against children. The reality is Epstein was a billionaire Democrat megadonor who feared Trump more than anyone because Trump knew Epstein was a creep all the way back in the early 2000s when Epstein-Ghislaine poached Virginia Guy from Mar-a-Lago when she was 17. Trump was not Epstein's buddy. Trump was Epstein's greatest threat. He was his nightmare, and Epstein knew it. Hence why he and the Dems have been trying to destroy Trump from the moment he came down the escalator. And that's absolutely true. And they are the ones who are caught in the trap. Every single time it happens the same way. And all those people that went along with this hoax, certain rhinos, they are also caught in the trap. And now he is exposing all of them. And you can see every step of the way, what is FBI Director Kash Patel doing? He is saving the children. Because I do believe eventually what's going to happen with the investigation that Trump has now started against the D's and the grand jury information, I do believe when the true information comes out, Trump and team, they do not want the children to be harmed. Because you know what happens when all of a sudden the fingers being pointed at certain politicians, certain world leaders, certain corporate CEOs, they try to cover everything up. And what do? They try to get rid of the evidence. This is why FBI Director Kash Patel put this out and said 122 children located or recovered across 10 states. Children from 23 months to 17 years old. Great work, FBI Jacksonville and partners. This is unbelievable right there. And this is why they're cleaning it all up first before the actual information comes out and the investigation comes out. Again, the deep state, the D's, they're so concerned right now about all of this. They weren't concerned about this going back 4 years ago. Actually, a reporter asked Schumer. Schumer is at this point. Everyone is seeing it. You had 4 years. You had total control. Why didn't you release it all? Because again, there was no reason to. Trump wasn't in power. And actually, if they actually had something on him, they would have taken him out a long time ago. Their plan has failed, just like everything else. And you could see every step of the way, the deep state, not just in this country, but around the world, they are panicking. You can see the EU's their new censorship machine, the Democracy Shield. I mean, really think about it, the Democracy Shield. You mean, hey, this is the shield to protect our criminal organization. Will police speech and suppress dissent under the pretext of defending democracy? What do you think is going to happen when the information still gets out there and they can't protect their democracy, which is their criminal organization? I do believe in the end they're going to become so desperate that they're going to shut down communications across the world. I do believe that is going to be their ultimate goal. Write that right there. And then and to distract everything from what is going on, they're going to try to start World War II. I do believe that is the card that they're going to play in the very end. And this is why Trump, every step of the way, is saying, nope, I'm the peacemaker. Look how many wars I stopped. He's getting people used to the idea that he is the peacemaker, because when the time comes, they will call on him. And you could see the deep state plan very, very clearly with all the illegals coming into this country and other countries around the world. Yes, they had the agenda of cheating in the elections, causing chaos. But once again, what they wanted to do is they wanted to reduce the population in all the different countries. So this way, they can overtake the country, overtake the history of the country, overtake the patriots of that country. This was their plan from the very, very beginning. And this is why when they released COVID and they released the actual plemic, which was the vaccine, the bioweapon, they wanted to kill off as many people as possible because, again, they were trying to reduce the population. Wall Street Maverick put this out and said, number one, they put out an article that says climate change is making people think twice about having children. That's coming from the Telegraph. The second article is Britain must rely on immigration to compensate for falling birth rate. Now think about these two articles. They said the same thing here in this country. So it's worldwide. Wall Street Maverick says, number one, tell white people to stop having children because of global warming and overpopulation. Step two, bring in millions of non-white immigrants into white countries because they're not having children. This has been one of the most evil schemes in history. And Wall Street Maverick is absolutely right. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that Trump, he let everyone know that Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro might be open to having talks. Now, I do believe Trump with the Patriots, what he does, he likes to box these people in because once again, he says, hey, I think they're ready to have talks. I think we're ready to hash everything out. And it kind of boxes them in. And then you see who they truly are. Because once he says this, what are they going to do if they say, no, we're not having talks? Well, it shows you who you really are. That everyone can see it, and it becomes very, very clear. And I do believe that Trump is actually setting him up to actually then force him into talks. So this is very, very interesting. Now, he does say we may have some discussions with Maduro, and we'll see how that turns out. Now, he does this on purpose. Now, it'd be great if Maduro just went ahead and they spoke together and they ironed out the differences here, and basically they went after the cartels and shut down the criminal syndicate. That would be fantastic. But again, I do believe he's setting him up right now because Secretary Marco Rubio put this out and says, State Department intends to designate Cartel de los Soles as a foreign terrorist organization headed by the illegitimate Nicolas Maduro. The group has corrupted the institution of government in Venezuela and is responsible for terrorist violence conducted by and with other designated FTOs, as well as for trafficking drugs into the United States and Europe. Now, once again, Trump, he boxed in Maduro, and they might be speaking behind the scenes, maybe in back channels, but you could see what they're doing right now. They're setting this all up. Now, we know that Mexico has a problem. Scheinbaum is controlled by the cartels. We could see that Maduro might also be controlled by the cartels. And this is all part of the criminal syndicate. And maybe Trump is allowing these leaders a way out. And maybe Trump is allowing these leaders to call upon Trump to assist with the cartels. That's very interesting. Now, of course, the fake news continually asks Trump the question, are you going to go into Venezuela? Are you going to bring troops here? And he said, I would love to do that, but again, it's a sovereign country. I do believe that Trump is not going to bring in troops into Venezuela or to Mexico to fight the cartels. Because again, this would end up in a war. And he is the peacemaker. The only thing I do believe that Trump most likely will do is if any of these leaders say, yes, we need your assistance in this matter to actually fight the cartels. So that means Trump and team would be working with the governments in those countries to fight the cartels in those countries, which is actually the deep state players, if you really think about it. So when you start to put this in context and you start to really think about this is Trump trying to create a relationship with these leaders so they can join forces to fight the deep state players. Let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting because it depends on which way Maduro goes. And it looks like Trump has boxed him in right now. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that we could see country after country, they're moving in the same direction as Argentina and El Salvador. Geyer Capital put this out and said, Javier Milei trend continues. Chile's presidential election, it looks like what is happening right now. 70% plus went right wing. Cast is a huge favorite versus Jara in the runoff. So this is going to be very, very interesting moving forward because we're starting to see the people now, they're fighting back. They're pushing back. And they want their elected people to run the country because they're seeing Argentina. They're seeing El Salvador. They're looking at other countries across the world like the United States saying, we want the same exact thing. And it's starting to spread from country to country to country. And again, the deep state players, they do not want this to happen. And you can see that they're going to try to start war wherever they possibly can. And I do believe that's what they're trying to do with Ukraine and Russia right now. But it's going to be very, very difficult because I do believe Trump, he is speaking to Putin via back channels. And basically, whatever they're going to try to do, I don't think it's going to work out because, again, you really need Putin to go against the Western countries. But I think if Trump and Putin are on the same side, that leaves the deep state players out on their own, and they're not going to be able to kick this off, which means most likely they'll try some type of false flag. Marin put this out and said, Zelensky, Macron, signed a major deal to strengthen Ukraine's military with advanced jets and missile systems. The agreement includes long-term plans for Rafale fighter jets and Aster 30 missiles and more SMPT air defense systems. It's part of a 10-year strategic push to help Ukraine build a 250-jet combat fleet and defend against growing Russian attacks. France also pledged deeper cooperation between Ukrainian and French arms manufacturers. So they're already looking into the future right now. And they're already looking
to basically take this war to the next step. Because Zelensky also sealed a deal with the Greek Prime Minister to import U.S. liquefied natural gas through the Balkan pipeline, ticking off from December. And
ramping up in January to cover winter needs through March of 2026. So this is very, very interesting as we move forward. And I do believe you're going to see all those countries that are who still have the installed politicians, they're all going to work together to push war as best they possibly can. And I do believe when they see that they can't win the midterms, when they don't have control, they're going to lean into some type of false flag to start World War II. And I do believe that this will most likely happen after the midterms. Because when all else fails, when everything they tried does not work, they will try World War II. And this is part of their 16-year plan. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that we've been talking a lot about how the left, how they hate women, how they're trying to infiltrate women in sports, women at work, women everywhere. And Lives of TikTok put this out and says, unreal. Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey appointed Giselle Bird, a man pretending to be a woman, to the Massachusetts Commission on the Status of Women, which advises on policy to improve opportunities for women. I mean, you really can't make this stuff up. So you have a man, and it's actually a black man, dressed in a woman's wig and a woman's dress. So the man is playing dress up. Senator Scott Wiener says, you're so thirsty for engagement, you don't care if your bigotry incites violence against people. Lives of TikTok is a straight-up hate group. For the record, that outfit is amazing, and as is the woman wearing it. Well, it's not a woman, and I think we all know this. Liz of TikTok says, this you pointing to Peter J. Hansen, and this is pointing to a New York Times Magazine story, and it says, and it's highlighted. But when it was implemented in January 2023, the effect was that uniform officers could no longer apprehend groups of girls in lingerie in Figueroa, hoping to recover minors among them. Now officers needed to be willing to swear they had reasons to suspect each girl was underage. But with fake eyelashes and wigs, it was nearly impossible to tell. One girl told Vice officers that her trafficker had explained things. So, Peter Hansen says, New York Times Magazine story out today makes clear that this law Scott Wiener championed made it much easier for human traffickers to pimp out teen girls. And Libs TikTok says, is this you? And it is him. And remember, this individual is going to take Nancy Pelosi's position. And I do believe the deep state players, they're forcing the old Democrats out, bringing in the far left. So this is going to be very, very interesting. And what we're going to see is as they bring in the far left, it's going to destroy the D Party. They won't even be able to stop it. It's going to be a complete and utter disaster. So all you got to do is look at Biden's time in the White House. The far left was running this. Yes, Obama is far left. They were running all this and the country turned on Biden. The country said, no more. That's what they did. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that we could see all of those far left politicians that were installed who are saying, yeah, we must defund the police. We must have social workers to talk to the criminals. It seems like in all those different places, they end up getting mugged or their car stolen or their purse stolen, you name it, because the policies that they put into place is actually destroying those areas and allowing the criminals to run free. Dapper Detective put this out and said,
mugged by reality staffer to defund the police advocate, and Illinois Senate President Don Harmon robbed at knife point. Harmon has legislated some of the most extreme soft-on-crime policies for Illinois in criminal justice reform at the behest of BLM. And look what happened. Karma, baby. That's what's happening right there. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is when we look at January 6th, we could see now that every day that passes, everyone's starting to understand and realize that January 6th was an insurrection by the deep state players. It was not an insurrection by the MAGA people. They set it up, they planned the whole thing, they put their operatives in the crowd, and they had a plan. And it took them a year to develop their plan. And the January 6th committee, the unselect committee as Trump would call them, they needed to convince everyone that Trump was behind it. But it was a big, gigantic fail because they're all morons. Eric Darty put this out and said, outrage is erupting after it was confirmed that the January 6th committee spent more than twice the original budget, a whopping $17+ million.
Where did the money go?
TV contractors and filmmakers to dramatize the attacks on Donald Trump. Pay it back with interest. What a scam. And that is absolutely true. It was one gigantic scam. And Trump, he decided to retruth one of his truths. And this is what it says. It was just revealed that the FBI had secretly placed, against all rules, regulations, protocols, and standard, 274 FBI agents into the crowd just prior to and during the January 6th hoax. This is different from what Director Wray stated over and over again. That's right. As it now turns out, FBI agents were at and in the January 6th protest, probably acting as agitators and insurrectionists, but certainly not as law enforcement officials. I want to know who each and every one of these so-called agents are and what they were up to on that now historic day. Many great American patriots were made to pay a very big price only for the love of their country. I owe this investigation of dirty cops and crooked politicians to them. Christopher Wray, the then director of the FBI, has some major explaining to do. That's two in a row. Comey and Wray, who got caught lying with our great country at stake. We can never let this happen again. Then he says, Wray lied. And that's exactly what happened. He lied to Congress about it all. They all lied. And what's very interesting when you start to look at the shooter who took a shot at Trump, and we know that was an operation by the FBI, by the Secret Service, by many others, because remember, the deep players were trying to remove Trump at the time. And I do believe it was an op. And yes, I do believe probably the FBI at the time, they knew about this. They knew about the individual. They knew about his accounts on social media. They knew what he was going to do. And I do believe they allowed him to do this because, again, this is what they have done in the past. And what we've come to find out is that in Lives of TikTok put this out, is that the Trump shooter was they, them pronouns, furry fetish, hated Trump, love political violence, extremist ideology, called Trump
racist and called Republicans a cult. And the media tries to convince us that he was Republican. Absolutely not. Then Libs of TikTok put this out and said, Trump shooter non-binary. Minnesota school shooter trans. Nashville shooter trans. Colorado Springs shooter non-binary. Aberdeen shooter trans. Denver school shooter trans. Iowa school shooter trans. Gender fluid. Charlie Kirk killer did it on behalf of trans boyfriend. It's time to have a serious conversation about the epidemic of trans violence. So when you start to really look at this and you step back and you take a look, you understand now that the deep state players work in the FBI, work in the CIA, and the rest, they knew that there was a group that they could depend on to carry out certain ops, and they used them every single time. I think the proof is in the pudding right now. I think that we could see what has been happening. It's pretty clear. Because again, they use these people. Remember, they're on medications. They're confused. Some of them hear voices. And I do believe they use the innocent people to do these things. And they've been using them in Antifa. They've been using them everywhere. If you really look at it, it's the same MO all over the place. It was an operation led by Mayorkas and probably many others. Miranda D. Vine put out an article in the New York Post saying secret FBI Secret Service butchered the Thomas Cook case and invited conspiracies. Now, think about it. During the investigation, what did the FBI, what did the deep say players do? This is before Cash came in. This is before everyone else. This was the old FBI. They basically cleaned up all the evidence. They sprayed down where the individual was shot. And you could see this is what they have done in the past. And they continue to do it. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the evidence was hidden, a lot of the evidence was destroyed, a lot of the evidence was manipulated to make it very, very difficult to investigate all of this. But this is what Miranda says. The then FBI director, Chris Wray, told Congress after the July 13, 2024 attack that the Bureau had found nothing in Crook's online history that pointed to a motive or political ideology. A week later, Wray's deputy Polabate told Congress that comments posted on one of Crook's social media accounts appear to reflect anti-Semitic and anti-immigration themes, to espouse political violence, and are described as extreme in nature. Thanks to an enterprising source who uncovered Crook's hidden digital footprint, we can see that Abate misled Congress by omission because he left out an entire section of Crook's online interactions from January to August of 2020, when he did an ideological backflip and went from rapidly pro-Trump to rapidly anti-Trump, and then went dark, never seeming to post again. Among the 17 accounts uncovered by our source were ones on YouTube, Snapchat, Venmo, Zelle, GroupMe, Discord, Google Play, Quizlet, Chess.com, and Quora. Yet, the source found reams of information that shows Crook was not simply some unknowable lone actor. He left a digital trail of violent threats, extremist ideology, and administration for mass violence. He spoke openly of political assassination posted under his real name and was even flagged by the other users who mentioned law enforcement in their replies. Despite this, his account remained active for more than 5 years and was only removed the day after the shooting. The deep state players did all this. And yes, he had a furry fetish. And he was pals with neo-Nazis. So basically, the FBI at the time didn't miss all of this. They knew about it. They allowed it to happen. Andrew Covett put this out and said, "Wow, President Trump's would-be assassin, Thomas Matthew Crooks, was entering a furry fetish just like Tyler Robinson." He also used they-them pronouns on social media profiles. This is beyond correlation. This is a 5-alarm fire. Important reporting from Miranda Devine. Absolutely. Now remember, Cash, he did a Crooks case overview and said this guy was acting alone. Now, at the time, the FBI, I do believe, allowed all this to happen. They covered up his footprint.
And people are saying, well, why isn't Cash revealing all this? Why isn't he showing that the FBI was involved? Well, there could be certain things, and we mentioned a post yesterday, because I do believe that one's going to lead to another. And basically, in that same post, it said probably 60% of the information must be kept private. Plus, remember, we're going after the deep state players, and we're going to have accountability. And who's doing the investigations right now? The FBI and the DOJ. I don't know if this would taint the FBI and the investigations, because then, just like that post says, what happens if this opens a can of worms? Could we ever bring these people to hold them accountable if the FBI is shown to be a deep state system where they have basically been the criminal organization going back in time? This might hurt the accountability process. So I don't know if Trump made the decision, and maybe, remember, Cash, Pam Bondi, they serve at the pleasure of the president. They serve him. So I don't know if they made the decision not to do this, but I do believe that if Trump says, listen, let's go in this direction, let's do it, I do believe they will. But what's very interesting, since Cash put this out there, Eric Trump says, thanks FBI Director Kash Patel, FBI Deputy Director Bonino. This is good to see. So that's very interesting. But let's see how this all plays out. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that Trump was asked a question, I do believe, on the tarmac about Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes. And he said, you can't tell him who to interview. If he wants to interview Nick Fuentes, I don't know much about him, but if he wants to do it and get the word out, let him. Ultimately, people have to decide themselves. So think about this for a second. Trump is the president. Is he going to censor anyone? Tell him not to say anything? No. It's not up to him to do that. Tucker, Nick Fuentes, and anybody else, they're private citizens. The First Amendment gives them every right. Now, people might hate it, but it gives everyone the right to speak the way they want. And I've said this many, many times before. I will defend anyone's right to speak freely, even if it's hate. Yes, look at the First Amendment. Now, it doesn't mean you have to agree with the hate speech. And I do believe this is why Trump says the people must decide. The government is not going to censor. Trump is not going to censor people. It goes against the Constitution. So think about that for a second. Clandescent put this out. Now he's pointing to Nick Fuentes right now. And Nick Fuentes in the first post says, so now Ben Shapiro, Randy Fine,
Lindsey Graham are considered MAGA, but Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson, Thomas Massie are not. Your Israel First mega movement is dead. The America First movement is the future. And then he thanked the president for saying that. Clanzen says the woke right morons are all over the place. They spend all day claiming MAGA is dead, Trump is a pedo, and Trump is a Zionist cuck owned by the Jews that betrayed MAGA. Then, when Trump says something they like, they love Trump again. You don't get to have it both ways. Now think about this. Trump just said the people must decide, which is absolutely true. Did he use this before? Yes. Yes, he did. Where did he use this before? Biden, Obama, / the far left. Trump said, listen, I can't tell you. I can't tell you what to do. I can't tell you that. Listen, you have to hate Biden. You have to hate these people. You must decide yourself. So he allowed Biden, the far left, the deep state players, show everyone their true agenda. And you know what the people did? They saw the hate. They saw the criminals. They saw everything. The people did decide. You know how they decided? They voted for Trump. Because if they were truly on the side of Biden and Obama and the far left, they would have sided with them. So Trump is saying, listen, you're going to have to make a decision. I can't make that for you. I can't censor people. People in this country are private citizens. They're allowed to speak freely. You must decide. Do you like that or don't you like that? And I do believe he's leaving it up to the people. I don't think it's going to work out the way everyone thinks it's going to work out. Just think of how it worked out for Biden. Think about it. Think about how it's working out for Marjorie Taylor Greene. But let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting. Now, the other thing that we could see is that the deep state players, they're trying to use the pardons that Trump has signed, and they're trying to use this to say that Trump did the same thing as Biden. AP News put this out and said Justice Department quietly replaced identical Trump signatures. And they're saying that Trump's team did the same thing as Biden. Will Scharf said this is 100% fake news. President Trump signed 8 of the 9 pardons at issue by hand in presence. He signed the 9th in the presence of a member of my team and others. We don't auto-pen pardons in this administration. That's the story. So they lied right there. Now, once again, we can see the fake news loves to lie. They're just making up stories as they go along. And Trump now and team, they are testing the deep state players. They're testing the judiciary. Like we said from the very beginning, I know everyone wants to have accountability. I know everyone wants everyone arrested, but everyone's going to be really darn disappointed when nobody is put into jail. And that is what's going to happen. Remember, we have, and this is why it's been repeated over and over. We have one chance to do this right. Wouldn't you rather do it right and take the time to do it right than to just go out and just arrest everyone to make everyone happy and then everyone complain that everyone's getting off the hook? Because that's what's going to happen with Comey right now. And if we arrested everyone, we would see almost every single case like this. Yeah, you might get a couple of them, but the rest would go free. And then what are you going to do? So let's do it right. So the judge now is ordering the DOJ to turn over grand jury materials in the Comey case. He's stating government misconduct may have tainted the case. Kyle Cheney put this out and said Mistrate orders DOJ to turn over the grand jury materials to Comey, finding real prospect of the government misconduct may have tainted the case. The magistrate said an FBI agent who may have viewed Comey's privilege materials was nevertheless permitted to present evidence to the grand jury, a highly irregular decision and radical departure for DOJ. He was the only witness at the grand jury. Fitzpatrick said Halligan made two apparent fundamental misstatements of law to the grand jury that could threaten the case. So basically, what are they doing right now? The judge is trying to get Comey off any way he possibly can. And the deep state players are using lawfare. I do believe Trump and the Patriots, they're testing all these different judges, testing lawfare, testing it, because again, you need to understand who you're dealing with right now. And I think Trump and the Patriots, they understand that. But Kash Patel and Storm Czar put this out, says there is 100% chance we're going to see people held accountable for the grand conspiracy and also for January 6th. We will not allow anyone who participated in the Russiagate conspiracy and those who improperly and illegally spied on me, members of Congress, and even members of the media for a political end state to be left unturned. These are investigations that are important of consequence to the American public. We're going after every single person. You've already seen indictments of people like James Comey and others, and we're not done. Maria Baramo then asked FBI Director Kash if he believes we're really going to see accountability, and he responded with, yes, 100%. Kash went on to make the point that the deep state spent over 10 years building the conspiracy, and it's only been 8 months of the Trump 2.0 administration. It's a solid point. It took years to take down the mob, and this is much bigger. We want justice so bad, but it has to be done right, and I believe it will be. Nobody on the internet knows what is going on behind the scenes, but all signs are pointing in the right direction. If anyone is going to truly drain the swamp, it's Trump and his administration. Like it or not, this is our only shot, so I chose to stand behind them. And again, we elected him. We gave him a mandate, and they will bring people to justice. Ezra Cohen says, I fully expected Kash and others serving in 47 to get attacked by the radical left. I didn't expect these public servants to face low blows from people claiming to be on our own team. And it goes without saying, the attacks on family members should be off limits. Storm Has Arrived says, it's amazing how many of these people have forgotten what President Trump has sacrificed to be where he is right now. He put Kash and Bonnie in there knowing exactly what they're capable of. Don't forget the backstabbers, because when it hits the fan, they're going to pretend like they were Team Trump the whole way. And that is absolutely true. And all you got to do is look at Marjorie Taylor Greene right now, and you can see every day that passes, it's really falling apart from her. This has nothing to do with Epstein. I do believe she wanted to run for the Senate. And Trump said, listen, when you look at the poll numbers, they're not good. Even if I endorse you, it's not going to put you where you want to be. So I cannot endorse you in doing this. Trump wasn't telling her not to run. He's just saying that, listen, I'm not going to endorse you. I think she got pissed off. I think she got angry. And look what happens when you get pissed off and angry. You say, you know what? Well, if I can't run for the Senate, then I'm going to make a lot of money. And that's exactly what she decided to do. She decided to become a rhino. And what's very interesting is that Bon Bad Hombre made a prediction. I made a prediction yesterday that she'll probably end up on a show. She'll probably quit Congress. But he said within 48 hours of Major Marjorie Taylor Greene will claim someone came to her house to threaten her or that she was swatted. She will absolutely pull a Jussie Smollett. Bookmark it. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene put this out and said, "The hoax pizza deliveries have started now to my house and my family members." Update. We also received a pipe bomb threat on my construction company office building. President Trump's unwarranted and vicious attacks against me were a dog whistle to dangerous radicals that could lead to serious attacks on me and my family. He just said that he's not going to endorse you and you're a traitor to this country. Bad Hombre said, "Did I call it or did I call it?" Absolutely. Karma Patriot says, "Well, and this coming from the independent Marjorie Taylor Greene, up 142% in stocks. She bought days before ICE awarded company massive contract. Laughable." So that's very interesting. She is making a lot of money via stocks. Her construction company is making a lot of money. And this is very, very interesting. So Truth Teller says the plot thickens. Apparently it's true that MTG's net worth in her only 4 years in politics ballooned from $700,000 to $22 million. I can't think of a way to explain this clearly. So either she's stock trading, which we could see she is, and I do believe she's probably getting some type of contracts for her construction company or something maybe. I don't know that actually allowed her to make $22 million because the salary that these Congress people are making doesn't allow this to happen. So Karma Pedri says, same. The more I dig, the more I find. Disappointing. And I think to a lot of people it's very disappointing. And what's very interesting is, look at the timeline in all of this. Pre-2021, before entering Congress, her net worth was approximately $700,000, primarily derived from her stake in the family-owned construction business Taylor Commercial Inc., which she acquired with her then-husband in 2002. 2023 estimates rose to about $11 million, reflecting growth in business interest and early investment gains. In early 2025, her wealth had doubled to around $22 million. October 2025, her net worth stands at approximately $25 million. So that is very, very interesting. So the growth equates to an average annual increase of over $6 million per year. Sound about right? With a salary of what, $174,000? I think there's something wrong. It sounds like a Nancy Pelosi thing to me. Trump, he put this out on Truth and says, "Wacky Marjorie Trader Brown. Remember, green turns to brown where there is rot involved, is working overtime to try and betray herself as a victim when in actuality she is the cause of all of her own problems." The fact is, nobody cares about this traitor to our country. And Trump is actually sending a warning to all the rhinos, and he's actually pointing them out. Why? Because once again, he is now stepping back and he wants people to see the board very, very clearly. Remember, the midterms are coming up, and the midterms are very, very important. I do believe they're one of the most important elections of our lifetime, not including the presidential election when we had Trump going up against Kamala Harris. But this will help Trump and we the people
carry out the rest of the plan. Trumpy put this out and said, "I will be strongly endorsing against any state senator or House member from the great state of Indiana that votes against the Republican Party and our nation by not allowing the redistricting for congressional seats in the United States House of Representatives as every other
state in our nation is doing. Republican or Democrat, Democrats are trying to steal our seats everywhere, and we're not going to let this happen." This all began with the rigged census. We must keep the majority at all costs. Republicans must fight back. Alex Brusowitz says, "As promised last week, the full force of the MAGA movement will be mobilizing in Indiana to unseat the rhinos who are betraying their constituents and undermining our nation by obstructing critical redistricting reforms. We've pinpointed every one of these obstructionists, and we're gearing up to recruit strong challengers without delay. Rhinos are no better than the radical left. They all must be replaced. And everyone that thinks that Trump is now dividing MAGA, that's not happening whatsoever. The MAGA base is strong. MAGA is watching all of this, and Trump is calling out the fake MAGA people and those people that are trying to divide MAGA. So no, MAGA is strong."
And what you're going to see is just like we said yesterday from Glandon, he's removing the chaff.
And that is exactly what is happening right now. And this is actually going to make MAGA even stronger. Actually, we saw this during Dantis. We saw very clearly all of those people, MAGA. Yes. Where were Trump? Oh, wait. DeSantis running. Hey, you know what? I'm with Dantis. You saw everyone drop and run over to Dantis. They're fake. They've always been fake. And then when DeSantis says, okay, I can't win, it's not going to happen, what did all the people do? They ran back to Trump. Think about it for a second. Trump, he put this out on Truth and said, in the entire United States of America, Republican or Democrat, only Indiana Republican State Senator Rod Bray, a complete and total rhino, is opposed to redistricting for purpose of gaining additional seats in Congress.
The Democrats have proven to be dishonest and untrustworthy in anything have to do with elections or election integrity.
Republicans must be tough and smart if we're going to win the midterms. The Rod Brays of politics are weak and pathetic. I wish he cared about saving our country as much as Democrats care about destroying it. Make America great again. And then he says, lines are forming to run against Rhino, Indiana Senator Rod Bray and those few other senators who support him and the upcoming primaries. Every one of them will lose in record numbers. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And again, this is about taking back the country.
Yes, other people have different agendas, but I do believe those people that have been with Trump from the very, very beginning, remember, he went through everything. They even tried to remove him by assassinating him. He went all through all this for we, the people. Remember, he always told us, I'm just in the way. They're really after you. If they remove me, they're coming after every single one of these people in this country. Every single person. Trump now is trying to take it all back. That's the mission. I think Kat says it the best. Trump is your president for the next 3 years and 2 months. He can't run for president again. Fake polls don't matter. Your skeptical feelings don't matter. Your constant whining about Trump's every move doesn't matter. Your protests don't matter. Your crying TikTok videos don't matter. Backstabbers Thomas Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene don't matter. Your fake MAGA is dead posts don't matter. Gaslighting, fake news doesn't matter. This country would be dead, gone, cooked, and over if drunk Kamala would have won this election. Trump saved the country. If you don't understand the simple fact, you're clueless. And right now, you'd be enjoying another 50 million illegal invaders over the next 4 years. And that would be all she wrote for the USA. And he's absolutely right. And Trump is doing exactly what we want him to do. Maybe not the way you want it, but he will reach his goal. And people are saying, well, why isn't Kash revealing all this? Why isn't he showing that the FBI was involved? Well, there could be certain things, and we mentioned a post yesterday, because I do believe that one's going to lead to another. And basically, in that same post, it said probably 60% of the information must be kept private. Plus, remember, we're going after the deep state players, and we're going to have accountability. And who's doing the investigations right now? The FBI and the DOJ. I don't know if this would taint the FBI and the investigations, because then, just like that post says, what happens if this opens a can of worms? Could we ever bring these people to hold them accountable if the FBI is shown to be a deep state system where they have basically been the criminal organization going back in time?